So, all right. Okay, so as I said, we have three different tracks this semester. One, as always, we have a university track. So we have a total of about 5,000 students, 152 universities, about 40 countries. And so they have two kind of age groups, so-called undergraduate students, bachelors. Those are somewhere between 18 to 25 years old. Most of them would be about 22. And then we have a separate track for master's students, mainly MBA students. And so this year they're a little older than usual. So most of them would be in the late 20s, early 30s. So the average age would be probably close to 30. And so we have about 5,000 of those. We split them into two different tracks, early track and late track. The early track has started already. They started in late August, so they've been working for about 4 weeks now. And then the late track starts in about 2 weeks, October 2nd, if I remember correctly. So they work in all student teams, and we try to match them by age and by work experience. And then we also have a track of professionals, as we call them. So this year they are on average about 30, 35 years old. And usually those are people who already have jobs and already have a lot of experience. And they just feel that they would like to gain some international experience in addition to what they already know. And so again, we try to keep them separate, so they are in teams with people of their own age and experience level. Some of them may be placed on teams with graduate students if we find some people, as I said, with similar age and experience. But generally, professionals stay with other professionals. Professionals tend to have full-time jobs, and they tend to have families, and so they have different sets of obligations in life. And so we try to team them up with people who are in a similar situation so that their schedules are more aligned and interests are more similar. And then obviously we have a kids track. So this year we have quite a few have applied. About 150 people have applied, if I remember correctly. And so we selected a smaller group, about 100 at this time. And so put them in the theory track, or they are in the theory training at this time. And as you know, you professionals and kids are going now through the theory training 4 weeks. And so we are almost done with week 3. So the next deadline would be this Sunday, today, basically, end of the day, to complete the third test, a theory test. Now, as I said before, for the theory test, we have several big objectives or reasons why we do it. First and foremost, obviously, we would like you to be prepared. Perhaps a little bit less so for professionals, but definitely so for kids. It's important that everybody comes prepared and knows the basics of international business, the basics of online international collaboration, the details about the project itself. And so obviously we would like you to go through all those materials so you have that knowledge. We will not be able perhaps to turn you into international business gurus in only a few weeks. But the hope is that at least you will have enough experience to know how to approach the challenge, how to work with your team, as well as know enough about the project so you know where the deadlines are, where all the other materials are located and things like that. That's the first goal. But the second and probably even more important goal is selection. So as you can imagine, some people who apply may not be as serious, as committed to the program as they thought they were. So some people apply, or maybe sometimes their parents submit the application on their behalf, but then the time comes to do some work to perform, and they just vanish. So they may not be able to sustain that level of performance for an extended period of time. So as a result, the theory phase allows us to sort of detect and weed out those people who perhaps may not be as committed, as serious, as don't have that work ethics and discipline to work week after week after week after week. And so just like last year, this time we see the same trend. So we had a couple of people whose emails didn't work, but we worked that out. So there was some problem with the email address. They didn't provide it correctly. But those things are easy to fix. A bigger problem is that people sometimes, as I said, once the time comes to do the work, they don't. And so as always, we will probably lose some people over this theory phase. But the hope is that those who will stay, those who will survive, will be people that we will not be afraid to put in teams. Those of you who participated last semester know that one of the challenges in any team, but especially in global virtual teams, is that you need your team members to be always there for you. And so some people may not be quite that, caliber. They may either be too busy with other things, or maybe lack the discipline and work ethics, or maybe simply, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there are many like that, but maybe some people are just not, basically are lazy. And I don't want to use that word, but, sometimes there are people who may not be just capable of working week in, week out. So the hope is that after these several weeks of training, we will know who is who and promote to the practical phase only those people who we know will not appoint their teams. And so this time it looks like we'll have quite a few left, but it seems like we may be losing several people. And so my hope is that by the end of this week, so once we download the data tomorrow morning, we will have a pretty clear idea who's staying. So if people have performed well on 3 exams so far, probably there is a very good chance that they will stay in the program and do well. And at the same time, if they haven't kind of gotten up to speed so far, it's highly unlikely that something will change in week 4. We have a very small group also of people, I think it's only like 3 or 4, who seem to be capable to pass the tests. So they show up every week, they seem to do, to try, but when the time comes to answer those questions, they answer correctly only about half of them. And so I'm not sure what the kind of reason is. Is it because they don't speak English well enough and they cannot comprehend the material? Or is it because they cannot comprehend the text due to some sort of, I don't know, maybe just, not smart enough or not reading carefully enough, and as a result do not understand the material and questions and cannot answer those questions? Or maybe just simply they're not paying enough attention, just quickly, randomly click on the questions just to get through. And so whatever the reason, again, my logic here is that we have to be tough and selective. Because again, if the person cannot answer half of those questions, that probably means that the person will not be a good member of the team. So nobody would want to have a team member who either due to a lack of attention or diligence, or due to a lack of language skills, cannot answer those simple questions. And again, so we will see what we're going to do with them. So the first test, we offered them to redo the test. And now we will just wait and see how they do on the remaining 3. If the results will look okay for several tests, but there will be probably a problem with only one, maybe we will say that, you know what, try one more time and try to redo it. If they stick around and do better next time, so hopefully that would be a good enough indicator that they're ready. At the same time, if they will say, oh, I don't want to take it again, or if they say, or take it and don't do well, I don't know, maybe they're not quite ready. But at this time, it seems like we have a very, very strong group of several dozen people. Then we have a couple dozen people who are, not quite sure. And then some we've never heard from. So there is a good chance that they just changed their mind, or something else is not right. So that's where we stand with the test. And so I have a question for you. How it's been going for you? Are the tests too difficult? Do you have any questions about the tests? Are they taking too much time, too little time? I know for people who have participated before, like Jaswin Raj, that's probably, he doesn't even have to open both of his eyes. He probably just click, click, click and gets everything right. But how about others? Sure, yeah. So what's your experience?
Yeah. So while I was giving the tests, so there are many subjective questions also in the test, right?
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah. So in the test, there are a lot of subjective questions also.
There shouldn't be. So there may be some, like for example, in the last training module, there are some things that you're asked to do your own research. And so those may not necessarily have the kind of right and wrong answers. So that's more a test of your ability to do a little research on your own. But can you give an example of the test, a question that you think is subjective?
Yeah. So while I was giving the test number 2, so in that test they asked that what type of people, members, do you think that your team will have, and how to tackle with them, and so those are subjective questions, right?
Yes.
And then there were problems that asked. So how are we marked upon those questions?
Very good question. Very good question. So yes, some questions I wouldn't call them subjective per se. So they would be more, a question of your opinion. So, and I guess you can say that's subjective. But yes, for questions like this, the test is not so much as to whether or not you can predict what kind of problems you will have or what kind of challenges your team will experience. But rather here we are testing basically your ability to recall material and present it to us. And so here it will not be so much about right and wrong, but it will be more about how. So we will see how you described it, how, your way of thinking, your way of presenting information. And so believe me, there will be a few people who will just say 2 words and that's it. Or maybe we'll talk and talk and talk for pages and pages and it's still not clear what they're trying to say. And then there will be some people who will write a nice, concise paragraph or maybe bullet list. Everything's clear, a very good presentation. So it's more a test of your writing skills and presentation skills as opposed to your specific, knowledge of what's right and what's wrong. So yes, that's a very good question. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, could I?
Yes, Krasimira, and since everybody did introductions, can you introduce yourself first? You joined a little late.
Yeah, sorry, because I was at work, so I just literally got time to put the thing on.
So tell us where you are and who you are.
I live in England, but I'm originally from Bulgaria. And I've got a part-time job and I also go to college. And I joined X-Culture because I thought it was a good opportunity for me.
Wonderful. How old are you?
17.
17. All right. The way you talk, I mean, you seem more mature, but very good, very good. So you had a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Why is the reading part so much? It's because some people, when they read, they get bored of it and they don't pay attention to the half of it. So basically, when I read, like in my experience, when I read a book and then I get bored of it, even if it's interesting or not. I get bored of it and then I don't pay attention for the rest of it.
Right. You're asking a very good question, and so there are several reasons. One, there is a lot of ground to cover, so there is a lot of stuff that we need to review, and so it's just a lot of materials because there is a lot of things to discuss. And so obviously we will not discuss everything that's needed to be covered, but at least I'm trying to cramp in those 4 weeks as much as possible. Now, in terms of reading versus, for example, videos or something else, well, again, kind of double-sworded edge. Double-edged sword. On the one hand, ideally, we would like to have interactive modules where you either watch a cartoon or play a game or maybe review the material in some other engaging and fun way. So that would be much more, probably interesting than reading a long and boring text. The problem with that is that it takes a lot of time, effort, skills, and resources to produce training modules of that kind. And so in time, hopefully we will have stuff like that. But at this time, we just simply didn't have the time and the resources to develop, either like Discovery Channel type documentaries or cartoons or something, that would be a little bit easier to work.
I was just wondering why, whether you could shorten it or something.
Now, when it comes to that, and so here is, again, forgive me for being so direct about it, but let me tell you a little story, and then that will explain some of the logic behind long texts. When it comes to global virtual teams, so we've been doing it for about 8 years, and we do a lot of research trying to understand why some people do better than others when it comes to teamwork and business consulting. And so we tried all kinds of predictors. We tested all kinds of things that can predict performance of people in this sort of tests. So we looked at cultural intelligence, we looked at IQ, we looked at values, we looked at prior experience, grades in school, all kinds of things. And then obviously percentage of the questions that you answer correctly on our own test. And in the end, the best predictor actually turned out to be something else. Can you guess what is the best predictor of who's going to do well and who's going to drop out?
Probably the ones who read more.
Well, not so much who read more, but those who are able to survive through a long and boring test. Like, for example, the tests that you take, they're relatively short, so you can do them probably in half an hour. With the university students, we give them only one test, so they don't get a training, or they get a training, but it's like one big training, and they have only one test. And it used to be that the test was relatively short, so it was about 50 questions. But then we started noticing a kind of a correlation, a relationship between how many questions people skip and how poorly they perform on the actual project. And so we noticed that it's not so much about knowledge and creativity. It's more about your ability to just sit down and do the job even when it's boring. And so for the students at the university level, now the test is like 200 questions. It's very, very long. And honestly, we don't really look that much at how well they do in terms of percentage of correct questions. We just test if they can survive that test. And so like those who, it seems like those who cannot go through several long and boring documents and then answer many questions, even if we put them on teams, they usually just, you know, drop out, or, you know, don't participate in the meetings, and teams always complain about them. So look at this more as a test of diligence and test of work ethics, as opposed to a test of knowledge. And so so that's kind of another reason. And yes, I know it may not be as engaging, but it seems to be a good test of whether or not you're ready to be in a project like this. Yeah, but I mean, also lastly, again, a trade-off between saying less versus saying more. I do like brief, you know, messages like Twitter-like, or perhaps, you know, just short articles. But again, one of the challenges there is that you know, if you are too short, you may not provide enough details. And what happens then, we have a lot of questions. And again, we have people of different level of preparation. And, you know, for someone like you, by the way you talk, you're obviously very smart. And I think if we cut off half of that text and just left the essentials, you probably would still comprehend the materials. But other people, especially non-native speakers, perhaps may need to, you know, repeat this stuff several times before they truly understand. And so, again, that's one of the reasons why it's so perhaps detailed to the point where it's boring. But again, so there is no simple answer to that. Yes. So maybe with your help, we'll make it a little bit more engaging next semester. So you provide suggestions.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Oh, Justin Raj, yes. Did you raise your hand? Yes, go ahead, please.
Sir, I have a question. We have videos about, like, there was a video about Mr. Baseball that he had problem eating Japanese people.
Oh, Justin, can you please repeat your question? The sound was not very good.
Okay, so we had a video about Mr. Baseball that he had problem with Japanese people.
Yes.
And last year we had a video which was upon a video which was on culture. It was 19 minutes long, and I think it was more useful than one. So I think it.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, thank you for your comment. Let me check the materials. I think we should have all of the videos from the last semester this time again, but let me check. I hope I didn't miss anything, but if there was a video, do you remember what that video, 19 minutes, what it was about, which one it was? I hope we didn't lose it in the process of transferring the materials to the new semester.
I don't remember properly, but it was about 19 to 20 minutes, and we had some, like, we have videos on, it was just like a video, like we have videos on closest dictator. It was like a SLM, kind of SLM.
Let me review my materials. I hope we didn't skip anything, didn't miss anything important. But yes, I'll take again another look, and if we missed any useful videos, I'll add those at least as an optional video so you can watch it, those of you who participate in the first time. And Krasimira, that's exactly the issue. So you see, like, some people prefer shorter stuff. That would be me too. But there are some people like Justin Raj who actually doesn't mind watching a longer video, so that may also be useful. So different learning styles. But yes, good comments, both of you, and maybe we'll even try to have a combination of short required and maybe longer for those who would like to read more or watch more to better comprehend the material. All right. So anyone else? Any more questions about the exams in theory?
Yeah. Hi, I am Saksham. I'd like to ask if one exceeds the word limit given, is it considered negative?
This is a very good question. When you say exceeds the word limit, do you mean in the test or on the final project?
Yeah, in the test, because the word limit was given for some questions, like 50 to 150 words. So is it considered negative if we exceed the word limit?
Well, at the theory phase or a theory training phase, it shouldn't be a problem. So obviously, if you want to say more and you say interesting things, that is not a problem. Unless it's, pages and pages and pages, and it's impossible to understand what you're saying. One of the reasons we put the word limit is, one, so that you don't spend too much time on this. We don't want you to write an essay each time, so that less is acceptable. And second, don't forget a couple of professors read it later on. And so there are a lot of students, and if you write a lot for us, it just takes more time. And usually, as they say, if you know what you're saying, you don't need to say many words. Mark Twain, the famous American writer, once said, "Sorry, my letter is so long, I didn't have time to write it shorter." So meaning that, long texts are easy to write. You just keep saying about everything and anything that comes to your mind. Condensing it to a few words, that's where, it sometimes becomes challenging. But overall, yes, on the test, it will not be a problem at all. When it will come to your team project, to the team report that you will be writing, that's where it's better to be short. And the reason for that is those materials, those reports, proposals, will be read by busy top managers of our client organizations. And some of them will have literally 100 or even 200-300 teams working on their challenge. And so when you print out 200-300 reports, that's like this much paper. We are talking about like thousands and thousands of pages. And so what happens is that if you write too much, they literally may not have the time to read it. I mean, it's overwhelming. And so it's always better to say less and maybe pique their interest, and they have your contacts and they will contact you if they really like it, than to say more. Because in many cases, as I said, if it's too long, they may just not read it at all. It may be wonderful, useful material, but when you have many, many competitors and your client has only so much time to read it, usually shorter is better. So at the training stage, if you write more, no problem at all. And I assume you wrote, if it says 150 word limit and you wrote 200-300, that's not a problem. That's still, comprehensible, readable, not a big deal. But when you will be working as a team on your challenges, there try to only keep the most important stuff and drop everything else. Just, be respectful of the time of your client and those managers that tend to be very, very busy. So that's where it's better to be short.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, well, let me talk a little bit more about the challenge. And again, if you will have questions, we will talk about that as well. So the main question this year will be similar to what we had last year. So, or in fact, again, let me backtrack a little bit. So again, we will have two different distinct blocks of challenges. So those who are professionals, so 19 and older, they will have the same challenges that the university students are working on. I was planning to have 5 companies, but I am weak and I could not say no to the many wonderful, great challenges that came our way. So this time we ended up with 13 companies. And so we have another 10 or so that are still asking to be part of the challenge. But for those, it's a little easier to say no because their products are a little too standard, so not necessarily super interesting. So I am okay with saying no to those. But there were at this time 13 companies that had such interesting, distinct, unique, cool products that I just couldn't say no, and I thought I would like to put them on the list. So if any teams would like to choose them, they can work on them. So just to give you some examples of those challenges, we have, for example, this American company called Unicorn Clean. They make shampoos for babies. So basically all kinds of cleaning solutions for children. So for diapers, for clothing and stuff like that. Then we have, for example, an Indian company called Sakona. They make 5D gaming stations, like big, it's not even video games. It's like much bigger. They even have a game that they call Dodgeball. And it's like a big inflatable room with some video in it. And so you basically kind of play dodgeball, but in a video environment. So you see the balls kind of, it's almost like, I don't know, a combination of a video game, some sort of a Wii, but you literally...
Is it like a
VR? Yes, go ahead. You know them?
VR.
Yes, so they
Yes,
make like some serious games, that you get inside. Yeah. Oh, Jocelyn, did you ever play their games? Have you seen them?
What, the VR games?
For Sakona's video games. Oh, you guys, you tried them.
I think there is one at a place Smash. I think there is a Sakuna game at Splash. It is like we have to shoot people with a gun. It is a VR game.
Yeah. So they have this kind of virtual reality, and as I said, it's not just a little computer. It's like, it's usually a huge device that you sort of get inside, and it's like flight simulators, and sometimes it's literally the size of a room. So really cool. And then we have right. So that's an interesting, product. And then we have, just don't laugh, promise me not to laugh, but we have this very interesting company, so we'll see how it goes. We had a webinar with them last week. A company that is called Mary's Poop. Yes? Yeah, so there's a company.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sir, that these 13 companies are for us also, or only for the senior ones?
No, we would so we keep those for professionals and university students. So the challenges they need help with tend to be much, much more complicated. So they need some serious business and marketing and strategy analysis. So to answer those questions correctly, you really have to be, several years of international business education. But the companies are interesting. The companies are from all around the world. We have some from Europe, some from North America, some from Latin America. Like one company makes tea, another company offers tourism services. Another one, as I was saying, just don't laugh, Mary's Poop. They offer poop, manure. So they have all kinds of exotic animals, and they sell poop for fertilizer. And so they have a loyal customer base, and it's a small company but growing. So we have several companies of that kind. For the children's track, we decided to stick with the Dream School, but it will be a little different. So instead of having one client, as we did last semester, instead of having just the Finnish Schools International, the project, the goal will be, again, to design a school of your dream. So a school that you think will be the best school in the world. But instead of having only one partner company, we are working with several different, very special schools, and they will tell you about how they teach children. So we will have the Finnish Schools International, so from Finland, and they will tell you about the Finnish method, so how they teach children in Finland. But then we will also have, for example, the Experiential School of Greensboro here in the United States, that uses all experience and project-based education. So they don't have lectures, they don't have classrooms, they don't have desks. It's all play, it's all projects, it's all teamwork. A very, very unique school, and so they will tell us about how they do it. And so they do it for all ages, and so physics, chemistry, mathematics, everything, it's all projects. And so it's a very interesting approach. And so there will be several schools like this that we will meet with and interview and try to learn about their approach, so that you know how other schools do it. But then ultimately your goal will still be to design the school of your dreams. And so this way, any interesting ideas, they potentially will be implemented not by one school, the Finnish Schools International, but by maybe several schools. And so another thing that we will ask you to do this time that we didn't ask you to do last semester is to also tell about your own schools. Maybe take some photos, maybe even do a podcast, maybe even interview some of your teachers. Again, one of the goals there is to learn more about how different education systems work, but also how schools in different countries operate. As you remember, last semester we did a little of that, and so we did notice quite big differences between schools in different countries. So the hope is that here you will learn something about how things are done in different countries. How teachers approach students, what the schools look like, what the classrooms look like, how they're composed at the classes. So hopefully in the end, by the end of this project, not only you will know how to work with people from other cultures, but you will also know a lot about education in different cultures, and even will have your own ideas if you ever had to lead a school. Yeah, so Justin Raj, please go ahead.
So children were participating again this year. Won't it be the disadvantage for the other people if we have finished schools?
Yes, you have more experience, but again, don't look at this as advantage, disadvantage. So here, first, those who will do it the second time, obviously they will learn more. You mean that you will have a better chance of winning the competition? Is that what you mean?
No, sir. I mean that some children can just copy and paste the project we had done the last year.
Well, my hope is that nobody will want to do that. So I'm sure that you will have many more interesting ideas, and even if you will borrow some, I suppose that shouldn't be a problem. What we might want to do is maybe share the presentations that you guys gave last year with everybody. So this way, whatever you knew last time, everybody will know as well. And this way, this expression, standing on the shoulders of the giants. So everybody will be able to build upon the ideas that you came up last year and then do it even better this time. So you and others. So I actually like that idea. Maybe we'll either use the recordings from the last year that you did the presentations, or maybe even organize a separate meeting where I ask you to, present your work one more time. So, but yes, I don't see that as a problem. So the goal here is to develop new stuff in a team of people from all around the world. And so if you use knowledge from last semester, from books you read, from presentations you saw, it's not a problem as long as you build upon it. Not just take it and say, okay, that's good enough, I'm not going to do anything else. As long as you take it and build upon it, develop something new, and come up with an even better idea. And while your ideas, by the way, guys, last semester were wonderful, some of your teams did extremely well. I'm sure there is a way to do it even better. And especially after you will get to know about more schools, talk to principals of more schools and see those different approaches they use. I bet you will have even more ideas for how things can be done. And maybe some of those things you will not like. Like, for example, my daughter goes to one of those experiential schools. She loves the process, but sometimes she seems to feel that, like for mathematics, you need sometimes to sit down with a pen and just do exercises, do drills. And if that's the case, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But I suspect she would say she would add that element as well to the program. So it cannot be all games. Although, again, for other peoples, maybe that's exactly what they will like. All right. Any other questions? So what will happen in the next? Yes. Shoria, please go ahead. Unmute your microphone. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask that, like in my junior year, we have been told about the corporate social responsibility and the social objectives of a business enterprise also. So considering that Finnish Schools International is a school but also a business enterprise on the same hand, it has some social objectives. So can we have a holistic approach to our business plan, or should we stick to just profit earning, or just, are you getting my point?
This is a wonderful question, and I'm surprised that you're talking about things like that. I mean, normally those issues come up when people get to not even undergraduate, maybe graduate level. I mean, where did you even hear that? I mean, is it something that they discussed in school? Because this is important.
I have been to many business plan competitions from my school.
Mm-hmm.
So they are small competitions, like half-day competitions. So we get on the spot, we get a case study and we have to solve it. So we always, in India, we always have to give a corporate social responsibility and everything with it. So that's how I know about it.
Impressive. My students need to get a little bit more of that kind of training. So sometimes, too often, it's all about, just making money and nothing else matters. And obviously, social responsibility is an important thing. But yes, if you can add anything about that, if you have some interesting thoughts that you would like to share with the company managers, or in our case, it would be principals of schools, yes, by all means, please do. Yes, and even if they are private school and ultimately, I guess, profitability is an important aspect for them, you definitely can, be socially responsible, and hopefully with your help, they will know how to do it better. When it will come, by the way, to designing your own school, you can design it any way. So it can be a private, it can be for profit, it can be non-profit, it can be whatever you think is the ideal design. And even if in the end you will decide to go with a model that is private for profit model, it can still and should still be socially responsible, doing well by doing good, as they say, right? Yeah. And so definitely, so please do include that in your report if you have something to say about corporate social responsibility, a very important topic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Anything else? Well, then a couple of words on what happens next. So we are almost done with the theory phase. We will download your test results tomorrow. And as I said, once we analyze it, I think after test 3, we will have a pretty clear idea who's in and who's out. Obviously, we will wait until week 4 and make those final decisions at that time. And then on Monday, October 1st, we will form teams. So Sharon and other more mature people, they will be placed on teams, obviously, with people of their own experience level. And those of you who are younger kids, you will be placed in a separate set of teams, and we will match you also by age. So if you happen to be 12, you will be in a team with people who are also 12. And if you are 16, your team will be comprised of people who are 16, and so on and so on. And so usually we try to do it Monday morning. But in reality, it's going to be about 5,000 names that we need to place on teams, students, professionals, kids. So usually it's like 9 p.m. my time by the time we are done. And so those of you who are in Europe or in Asia, for you it probably will be late at night, or maybe even the next morning. So it will be probably Tuesday when you wake up that you see an email with the names of your team members. And then basically, yes, you're ready to go. So we will have additional webinars with the new companies, and we already have recordings of the webinars with some of the companies that participated last semester, so especially for those who are in the student track. For the kids, we will have webinars in the first week of October. So we already scheduled a couple, as I said, with the Finnish Schools International, with Experiential School of Greensboro. We are talking now about the date with the STEM Early College here in Greensboro as well. So they specialize in STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we're still looking for more schools. So the idea is that we will have as many as possible meetings with the principals of those schools so that you can get a better idea how those things work. And so we will try to have all those webinars in week 1, maybe week 2, depending on the schedule, how it goes with some of them. And yeah, and you will be able to work on it with your team once you know who your team members are. As always, we will send you the emails and the names first, and then you will initiate the contact by email, but you can always create a group in Viber, in WhatsApp, in Facebook, whatever works for you as a team. Skype obviously would be very advised that at least sometimes you have a meeting. So, and then once the practical phase starts, we will try to have a webinar like this every week, mainly to share quickly experiences and then, you know, see what kind of challenges teams may be experiencing and if any guidance is needed. They will be optional. I mean, I hope you will attend them, but at the same time, if you have to miss 1 or 2, it's not a problem. We will record them and share the recordings. But again, if you attend them, it's a good opportunity to get to know other people, to ask questions, get some answers.
I've got a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry.
Yes.
For the webinars, because I missed the first one due having college that day, and I didn't know where to go to watch it afterwards. Where do I go to watch it?
It should be, the link should be, let me check, but yeah, I should have shared the link on the page there. Let me check. I hope it's there, so my assistant should have posted the link right after the meeting. But if not, I'll share that with you. Although the one that you missed, probably not a huge deal. So it was just an introduction, just an overview of what to expect. And by now, you probably know all of that stuff anyway. So
yeah. It's because after that webinar, I thought you would send me an email after that, and it didn't send me an email. That's why.
The link normally is posted on the same page where you see all the materials, but let me check. So
okay, thank you.
It's like for some reason my assistant didn't do it, but I'll definitely take care of that. No worries. So I'll take a look, and so yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
We'll take a look. Yes. Shoria. Yes. Your sound. Yes.
So one last doubt. So while I was going through all the videos that were suggested in the tests, so in one video I came across that you said if you're talking about marketing through social media, we should always have a background and how to go about it in a comprehensive manner, right?
Yes.
And in another video we were told that everything should be short and crisp and precise. So if we go on about presenting a comprehensive view of each and every aspect, because considering that we are the hired persons, like for the company, if you go on a comprehensive approach for each and every aspect, wouldn't it be too long?
Yeah. So we're giving you conflicting advice. Write less, say more, right? But yes, it's a very good question. In fact, probably the most important question when it comes to the quality of the report. So when we say provide enough details, we do mean it. You do have to provide enough details. Many people literally say you should advertise your school, for example, on social media, and that's all they say. And obviously that's not useful because, first of all, there is no doubt that the CEOs of the companies thought about advertising on social media. So that's not new, that's not useful, and it's not practical. I mean, it doesn't really give you any guidance. So at the very least, you should specify what specific social media you should advertise on, what kind of ads you want to put, maybe provide some estimates for how much it will cost, maybe provide some step-by-step guidelines, where to log in, what to do, how to place an ad there. If you think that they should hire a professional agency to manage it, give some suggestions. If you think that those ads should be placed at a specific time, provide those suggestions. At the same time, when you're providing those suggestions, it's enough to provide maybe some sort of like a bullet list or maybe short explanations. So there is no need to copy and paste a whole Wikipedia article on what Facebook is. Same thing, for example, when it comes to analyzing the market. That's where we see often too much redundant text. So people would say, okay, and we think you should open your school, for example, in the United Kingdom. And then they literally would write like a copy and paste a whole Wikipedia article about the United Kingdom, the political system, I mean, all kinds of things. And so that's where it's not good. So you might want to provide only some of the most important, facts, like, maybe population size if it's relevant, maybe, I don't know, religion if it's relevant, maybe the economic conditions if it's relevant, but only very briefly and only the most important things. So there is no need to put everything and anything you can find on the topic. Many people in school are worried about not saying enough. When teachers give you assignments, usually they say, and it must be a minimum of 10 pages. In our case, or in business in general, it's usually the opposite. As I said, once you study a topic for a period of time, you amass all kinds of relevant information, interesting articles, books, facts. And so it's very easy to write a lot. You just literally copy and paste everything that you have. And so in this age with Google, you can find thousands of pages on just about any topic. The key becomes selecting the most important stuff, keeping only that, but at the same time providing enough information so that your client can look at it and know what to do with it. Not just the list of topics, but actually substantial details so that they can comprehend what you're trying to say. And if it's some sort of an action plan, he or she can follow it. There are enough details provided there so that they can execute it as recommended by you. So hopefully that answers your question. But yes, a balance between enough details while not saying too many or not too many pages of text. Yes.
So can we do this thing that we mention the points in the reports and the final document in bullet points and explain it while presenting ourselves?
I personally love bullet points, and if it was up to me, I would say use them every time possible. So instead of kind of paragraphs of plain text, I would use bullet lists. They're much easier to kind of process, to scan. At the same time, maybe at some point it would be necessary to provide some explanation. So I suppose a combination would be a good way to go.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So we're pretty much out of time. Any last minute questions? Okay. Well, then I hope to see you. We'll probably have one of these next week again. And then once the practical phase starts, we'll have again and again and again those meetings. So, but yeah, good luck to you on the remaining 2 tests, and hope to see you, at least some of you, next week. Very nice to meet you. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. And Krasimira, I'll make sure to post the recording of this webinar for everyone to see, and even a separate email about that too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.